Morning people wake up for peace and quiet. McDonald's breakfast people, we wake up for the sweet rush of getting that warm, delicious breakfast right before it ends.
Crush your morning goals with a steak, egg, and cheese bagel or any breakfast sandwich and snag another one for just $1 with the buy one, get one deal. Only in the McDonald's app. Limited time only at participating McDonald's. Valid once per day. Must opt into rewards.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Here we go, man. The year-end wrap-up. Welcome to the Deconstructionist Podcast, everybody.
Welcome.
Welcome.
This has been a long time. We haven't. Usually, it's like, and we'd like to welcome our guest or whatever. But
I know.
we haven't done just the two of us episode in a long time.
So much
Yeah.
has happened.
Well, we meant to do this last year,
I know.
and you got Adam. Adam got really busy. He had a new job last year, and
I got shat on.
he did. He did.
By my old job.
That's putting it nicely.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
They were not so sweet to
Corporate America's cutthroat, man. For anybody out there that has experienced some real tension and anxiety in their job, I understand.
you. Yeah.
I really understand.
For those of you wondering why sometimes we have like a spelling error on social media or like I forget to ship something, it's because this podcast is by far not our only job.
Not at all.
In fact, we are recording this one in the nighttime.
Yep.
And because that's the only time we can when our children are asleep.
Yep.
So. But anyway, yeah, we meant to do this last year. We tried to get around to it, and we basically what's my aunt used to say? Like when you run out of gas, you hope your car is going fast enough where you just coast into the gas station. That's kind of what we did last year.
Yep.
We did not anticipate this podcast growing in the way that it did, and we did not anticipate anyone guest wise saying yes to us, and so. When no one said no to us for quite a considerable period of time, monthly releases turned into weekly releases, and we barely made it through 2016 alive. And so,
Dude.
yeah.
Let me start off because what we're gonna do in this episode. So if you're listening, going, what the hell is this episode gonna be? Should I just turn this off right now? There's no guest. One of the things that we want to do is connect with you guys as listeners, and so. Even though we're constantly doing the interviewing and if you're paying attention, you can hear what leaks out a little bit of like maybe where John's at a little bit or maybe where I'm at just by the questions we ask or what we're interested in. But like this episode is like, I'm going to ask John some questions. John's going to ask me some questions. And we are going to talk about the last 2 years of journeying in this idea of deconstruction and kind of where we've been, where we are. Where we maybe see it going, and a lot of the fun things that have happened in between. So, to open up, John, Mr. CEO, the guy that makes this whole thing happen. You guys don't even know. John is the engine, the coal fire. He's the wheels. He's the track. I'm a passenger on this train right now because my work is so crazy, but... Everybody give John some love. Couldn't do this without you, man.
Oh, thank you.
And so, when you think of this, if you imagine this thing that we've got here, this space, this podcast, which is it feels like more than a podcast. It feels like almost like the podcast is like the plug for like whatever energy is like. It's the way we plug into something else that's going on.
Yeah.
So. When you think of like what we've got here, like what is it to you? What is this?
Oh man.
Yeah, what are we doing? What is this thing?
Well, first of all, people listening, just know that I did not see these questions in advance. So
they're all up here in my brain.
Adam writes all his questions in his brain, which makes it really hard for me to know what's coming. So
I want candor. Like I didn't want you to be able to think about this. This is raw and uncut.
Yeah, this is my honest answer. Gosh.
And I fed you some beer before this. So
You did.
Drink up, buddy.
Yeah. Wow. I don't know. It's funny because, as we were preparing for this, I was kind of trying to reflect back on the last 2 years and like what our intentions were when we first started,
Mm.
and what we thought this was going to be compared to what it became. And um, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Like we talked a little bit before we started recording, and I think it started out as a passion project between the two of us, where we were going to research topics we were really interested in, and very curious about, and that kind of quest for knowledge, or that quest for some, not certainty, but like just an idea of like, what is this thing
Yeah.
that we're all involved in, this life thing,
Yeah.
and it's become, to me, more of like this giant extended community that we tapped into that we didn't know existed.
Mm.
And personally, we've made so many new friendships through doing this podcast. People like Clay,
Mhm.
and George, and Julie Newton,
Julie Newton.
and and Joe Ernst, who designed our
Yes.
awesome logo,
Ryan Battles,
who did our glorious website.
Nick Rowe.
Oh my gosh, who makes us sound pretty every single week,
Ryan-
and provided music for this episode.
Yeah, Ryan Alexander.
Ryan Alexander, who continues to just like,
What about like Marcy Heater?
oh my gosh,
Like Marcy Heater
one of our like most
shows
devoted.
shows up at our church.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
are you guys the Deconstructionists? Is this your church? We're
Really?
like,
Oh,
wow. Yes.
Yes,
And now
it
we're
is.
like family.
yeah,
She's like family.
yeah, and Becky Bateson,
Becky Bateson.
and like people who found us and who were also like looking for community, and like guests we've had on who we've become friends with, like Peter Rollins and
Mhm.
and Sweet Uncle Shia,
Sweet, sweet Uncle Shia.
who you guys got to hear last week. Like we treasure these relationships so much, and they've helped me grow as a person spiritually and otherwise, and made me realize that like the ground is firmer beneath my feet. I
Mhm.
think, knowing that there are other people out there who have gone before me, who are walking next to me, who maybe are a little bit behind me on the journey.
Wow, dude.
Yeah.
So like to sum up what you've said, like to you, when I ask you like what this thing is, it's all about the community that we're getting the privilege through the interwebs
Yeah.
of plugging into and engaging with.
Yeah. I mean, we can track our stats and our demographics and stuff. And so we've got listeners now in over 200 countries, and it like you look on there and you just kind of stare at the map, and you realize that it's just this giant matrix of people who could be halfway across the planet from one another, but we're all dealing with the same things. We're asking the same questions. We all kind of are searching together, and you realize that we're not that far apart,
Right.
really.
Right.
Yeah. What about you? Like,
You know, I'm always a little bit more abstract than you. I'm the abstract one.
you're the philosophy guy.
Yeah. So when I think of this thing that we're involved in, I just explained it to somebody last night. Like, I feel almost zero sense of ownership at all.
Yeah.
Like, I feel responsibility,
Absolutely.
but I feel zero ownership. Like, I feel like we are stewards of some bit of energy, something that I don't even quite understand. And my job is to just continue to respect it and listen to it and try to discern where it wants to go,
Yeah.
not where I want it to go. And it's literally almost just following like the next day's breadcrumbs. Like, where is this thing? Like, what's next? Like, what looks like it's opening up for us to walk through? How do we continue to just be responsible to? And I think that's so, like, interestingly enough, I think that's so true to what like Derrida or Caputo or like maybe even Rollins would say about the idea of deconstruction itself. It continues to open.
Yes.
There's a continued opening, exposing itself to its future. Like, what is the future here? What's the event? What's coming?
Yeah.
So when I think of this thing, I think of the need for a space that respects the fact that we are not there. It's coming. It's still coming. And that means we need to listen. And that means we need to engage with others and continue to ask questions and continue to facilitate not an open-mindedness for the sake of open-mindedness, not an open-mindedness because all ideas are created equal. I don't believe that. I don't believe fascism is, equal to a well-intended, generous liberalism. Like, come on. Like, you have values. But what I do believe is that as we, as collective humans, get together around what it means to be human, what it means to encounter transcendence and the divine and faith, and how all of these things kind of come together. We need spaces that are open, non-judgmental, and can in some way offer food for the imagination, inspiration, possibility that respects the impossible, which is always that thing that's next.
Yeah.
And so this thing, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I don't know how to define it.
Yeah.
I really don't. I'm very hesitant when somebody's like, "What are you guys doing?" I'm like, I don't really know. All I know is we've tapped into something important. And what we're not doing is offering some alternative to orthodoxy or some alternative to conservative Christianity or some alternative to, whatever. No. It's just continued opening.
Yeah.
It just keeps opening. I don't know. I know that's really ambiguous language, but like that's the best I've got. I don't know what this is.
I've got something for you. I just want to, I'm curious because I completely understand what you're saying.
I'm glad you do because I'm not sure I do.
Well, and we kind of talked about this before when, like we've talked about, there are certain people out there who are absolute, like specialists in their field. They're academics and they could tell you everything inside out about that particular topic or that
Sure.
that area of expertise.
Yeah, you're an expert.
And then there are people who are meant to be what I call a tour guide. Meaning that they not that they don't have a lot of knowledge in that area, but their job isn't to give you every little detail about that fact or that subject, but it's rather to show you some things.
Yeah.
And to give you a taste.
Yeah.
And to let you but at the end of the tour, you're still allowed to walk around and take a look and research more for yourself.
Yep.
And I kind of feel like and maybe this is where you're going. I kind of feel like that's kind of our job here is like we bring on guests to give people a taste, but ultimately to say like we're not giving you answers. We're not saying that this is the new way. But what we are saying is here's an idea that we think is interesting. And so go check it out. Go dig in more.
Yep.
Go research more and go find out more for yourself and see what you think.
Yep.
That's what I got.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Okay, so my next question for you is 2 years ago when you and I used to just get together for beers and we both just totally look forward to it because it was all about like, what are you reading? No, what are you reading? Like, what's interesting?
Yes.
Argue about this, talk about this. Here's a different perspective on, oh my gosh, here's something about like sexuality and religion. Here's something about the idea of hell. Here's something about atonement or, truth or whatever. Like we love doing that. And then this idea for this podcast was born predominantly by you. And we needed a name, and we picked this name.
Yeah.
The Deconstructionists.
Yep.
And originally, do you remember what it was originally going to be? But it was too long.
Deconstructionist Anonymous,
yes,
right? Yeah.
Because we felt like there was so many people out there that wanted.
Our Facebook still is that, by the way.
I know, that's so great. I'm not on Facebook, so I always forget that.
Yeah.
But we landed on something to do with deconstruction or Deconstructionists Anonymous because we knew that there were lots of people locked in some worldview that they inherited or had found themselves in a rut or in a hole or whatever, and they wanted to see more. They wanted to ask questions. They wanted to give voice to doubts. They wanted to feel safe being authentic. And to them and to us, you and me, that just kind of resonated with this word deconstruction. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
It's less about like the philosophical kind of Derrida, like actual deconstruction. You can trace it back to that a little bit,
Sure.
but more it's like an emotional, symbolic language. Like it feels like you're taking something apart because the worldviews that we're usually given feel like building blocks. They feel like structures.
Yeah.
And you do start to get concerned to ask certain questions, no matter how much your youth pastor told you it's okay to ask questions. You always had that sneaking suspicion that like, yeah, but you don't really mean that. You know what I mean? And so this Deconstructionist Anonymous, this word, is what we landed on.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the summary for the listener that hasn't been with us the whole time. So my question for you is, here we are 2 years later. When I say deconstruction to you now, after 2 years of doing this,
Oh man.
what do you start to think about now? What does that mean to you now?
I immediately think back to two instances. Number one, when because you came up with the name, like Adam is the philosophy king, and so I dabble in philosophy, but mostly my thing is I'm a giant history nerd.
Oh, you love it.
Love history.
How did it happen? When did it happen? Where did it happen?
Yeah.
Who said what when? Oh, I love it.
Yeah, I'm
great.
like fascinated by that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, the stuff that puts most people to sleep. I'm totally, that's my jam. But like, so I had to dig into it. I had to dig in. Like, I knew the basics, the greatest hits of philosophy. Plato and Aristotle and Aquinas, and like the basics.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to dig in, and I had to find out like, what is this term? I'm like, it's provocative. I like it. Like it's a cool sounding name, but what does it really mean?
Yeah.
And it's a loaded term,
Oh man.
and there's a lot of misconceptions about it. And like, I'll be honest, I didn't have a full grasp of it until we had Caputo on.
Mm.
So those of you that don't know, Caputo is just like a beast, and we had him on last year.
You
And
must stop what you're doing. Go back and listen to our episode called Weak Theology
yeah,
with Jack Caputo.
holy cow.
Man.
So like, yeah, so there were two instances. Number one, when you first introduced the term to me, when we were trying to figure out what a good name, and then number two, when Caputo actually absolutely took us to school, and because we've kind of had a love hate with it,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of people initially, and I probably thought this too, thought that it just means almost destruction,
Right. Demolition.
not like, there's nothing constructive about it. It's more
Right.
destruction versus
Right.
deconstruction.
Right.
And so I probably had a misconception initially about it, but I always felt like there was something more to it. And then when Caputo came on and really like just dropped the hammer, dropped the mic, and like what it really means, I see it, and obviously since then we've added the brackets to the D and the E,
Mm-hmm.
so there's a little construction happening.
Thank you, Rob Bell.
Yes. I view it as a necessary action that one must take when it comes to not only like their theology or their spiritual lives, but like the way that they view politics and the way that they view, a lot of different systems within life. It's one of those things where if you are not looking with a critical eye from the inside out, I think when we first did our episode on like what is deconstruction, the thing we were trying to point out is that any system, especially a system that you are living your life by, or building a house on, rather,
yeah.
you want to make sure that structure is solid. Or if you were, a better analogy would be building a ship, a boat. You want to make damn sure that like you've covered every square inch of that thing to make sure there's no holes or leaks. And so I've always viewed it like that, it's like, I'm not getting rid of this ship. I'm not getting rid of the boat. This is a sturdy ship. But I'm looking for planks that might be, might have a hole in it or might be rotten.
Yeah.
And I might have to replace a couple planks here. I might have to sand it and repaint it at some point, or replace a screw or a nail or something like that. And so for me, it was never about like, well, we need a new boat. It was always about like, how can we fix up and repair the spots where the leaks are?
Or how about just how can we pay attention to this place that we need to shelter us, this place that we need to thrive and have community?
Yeah.
I don't know anybody that owns a home that doesn't know that you are never freaking done.
No,
Never done. If you give a crap about your home, like if you actually care about it, and you care about your family that lives within it, you are constantly doing things to the exterior, to the interior, to the foundation, to the electric, to the plumbing, to the painting, to the, you name it.
Yeah.
And if somebody ever said, like, I don't know how long you've been in this home that we're in right now. Like, how long have you been here?
3 years. Yeah.
And you've changed a lot?
Oh my gosh. As you know,
Yeah.
the bathroom is brand new.
Yeah,
now.
the bathroom's brand, like all kinds of things are brand new. But
For
like,
sure.
like this is kind of like a philosophical like parable that they use in teaching, philosophy. But like if somebody asked you if you've changed homes in the last 3 years, you'd say no,
Right.
even though it's not the same home anymore. You've
Right.
changed a lot of stuff about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how many planks in the ship, how many pieces of the home can you change? How many cells in your body can change
Yeah.
while you still remain the same? And this drives us to the point of like what we're talking about here when we're talking about deconstruction. It's respecting how reality actually functions.
Yeah.
And what we need to do, now I'm going to use like preachy language, but we need to keep our idolatry in check.
Yeah.
And what idolatry is to me is you come up with something that you think is perfect in the moment. And it feels so good. It feels so right. And we do this in relationships. So how many times has somebody said, "You're not the person I married"?
Oh my gosh.
Well, no shit. No, I'm not. I'm not the same guy I was yesterday.
I'm 38 years old now.
I know I still have the body of a,
37-year-old.
chubby, whatever.
However, yeah.
But there's idolatry there. You're not
Yeah.
the person I married. This house, if this house is perfect. So what? You're never going to do anything to it? You're never going to change it?
Yeah, your answer should be, I hope I'm not the person I was when we first got married.
Exactly.
If I haven't evolved as a person, oh my
And
gosh.
so this is true of all of reality.
Yeah.
Because anytime we find something and we love it, we want to worship it. We want to grab it. We want to think it's the answer. We want to think it's the cure. It's what Rollins was actually talking about a little bit when we were talking about the last guru. It's this problem of interference or transference. Sorry.
Yeah.
The subject is supposed to know, meaning like this. You're supposed to have the secret, the answer that completes the void within me. You're supposed to have the thing, whether it's a relationship or a house or a job or a doctrine.
Yeah.
Or an enlightenment. I can't tell you how many people have you talked to since we started this conversation, even right before we started the podcast, and we're having lots of conversations before we started recording. And you'd talk to somebody who was feeling good about asking new questions. And they start spouting off, like we do, you and me both.
Yeah.
Start spouting off some author, and you can tell they are worshiping this new author.
Yeah.
This new person has the new answer, and they are ready to pledge allegiance. They're ready to say, "Oh, it's so and so that has just set me straight and everything." I just hang on. No, you're doing it again.
Falling right back into certainty.
You're doing it again.
Yep.
We all do it again, and that's what I think is like idolatry. So, like in the Old Testament, God, God in quotes, right, air quotes, God never allowed himself to be known in any way that would allow any of his quote unquote worshipers to have any kind of control.
Right.
So no name. Nope. No images. Nope. No structure around it was the community.
Right.
You're the people of God.
Yeah.
Yeah, the society of God. But God, mysterious,
Yep.
unsayable, unknowable, even as we know God.
Yeah.
God is unknowable. So it's just that's what I think is so beautiful about deconstruction. It is more faithful to the nature of what I think reality actually is
Yes.
than any time we settle on a certain systematic theology or a certain person or a certain place or a certain thing and we say, this is it. You can't question it, alter it, or change it.
Yeah.
It's like, well, then it just died. You just froze it.
And at the end of the day, it's always a human interpretation or a human
Yeah.
idea of what it might be.
Talk about that a little bit. That's been big for us. Now we're just riffing, but this is fun.
Yeah, no. I think that's my biggest problem. It's like you said, when you fall prey to kind of idolizing an idea or an individual or whatever, like at the end of the day, you still have to come back to the fact, well, this is still an interpretation of what it might be. You know,
Right.
it's like at the end of the day, we can only speak of God or the divine in terms of metaphors. Well, God is like, yeah, and that sort of thing. Because as you said, it's until we die, we're never really going to fully know or understand the divine in any way. So the best we can do is filter that through our senses and kind of almost, what's the term? Experience the byproduct of God's essence, I guess.
I like that.
So like I've been writing a lot recently about like if we're made in the image of God and God is absolute love, then the best that we can do to understand even a micro fraction of what God is by experiencing love here and now.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so I think ultimately, like when it comes to all the details, when it comes to our doctrines and our belief structures, we're just grasping at straws. We're doing the best we can with what we have.
We're trying. We're
Yeah.
talking about it.
Yeah.
We're trying. By the way, your blog was really good.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So we could talk about this all night. I
Yeah.
mean, that could have been a whole episode
Yeah.
right there. But this is good to kind of revisit these concepts. We've been doing this for a couple years now, and so where are you right now?
Oh man.
Where are you? How would you even talk about that?
Gosh. I don't know. I was thinking a lot about this as we were getting ready to record. So over the last week or so. And so I was trying to think back to where was I when we first started? And I knew I had just hit the tip of the iceberg in terms of I didn't even know what questions I had. You know what I mean?
God, what a cool place to be.
Yeah.
Oh, I kind of miss it.
I didn't know all the crazy terminology like hermeneutics and exegesis and all this stuff. And I just knew I had a few questions, and that snowballed into full on, just, I don't know, getting into all sorts of stuff.
Mhm.
Beyond just biblical history, which is, I'm fascinated with it. I want to know, who wrote the Old Testament, the New Testament, what was happening in the intertestamental period? Who were the authors potentially, or the communities that authored parts of the Bible? What was important to them? What was happening to them? All this stuff.
And since other religions were first, how much was this actually influenced by other religions that came before it? How much did Buddhism and Hinduism actually, since they're both Eastern, have an impact on, because we know that Assyrian religion, Babylonian religion, yeah, all that stuff.
Oh my gosh. Which is totally what I'm into now.
It's amazingly interesting.
Yeah.
Because it really happened. So why not ask about it?
Right. And I don't understand the idea of let's not ask questions and follow the natural, let's not follow the path and just see where it goes. I don't understand that.
Mm.
And so my gut reaction, and maybe this is my history background, is to research and to follow the path as far as it'll go until I hit a dead end. That's my, the other night, side rabbit trail. I realized that in history class when you're growing up, you don't learn anything about your closest neighbor. I don't know anything about Canada. Nothing. I'm sorry, Canadian
Nothing.
listeners.
No.
They don't teach us anything down here. And so the only thing I knew is that a lot of the most populated cities in Canada, logically speaking, are close to the southern border. But I'm more fascinated with how far up do they go? So I'm on a map the other night, laying in bed with my wife, and I'm looking at like all these different these towns up like near the Arctic shelf or whatever they call it up, as far north as you can go. Cold.
Really cold.
And I'm researching like populations, what their industry is, like that this is where I go. So anyway,
That's why I love you, man.
rabbit trail, but that gives you an idea of like where my brain goes. So like, oh gosh, like totally off the original question. But so originally when I first started this, I was just digging into like, I wanted to know the basic stuff, right? Like I never really asked the question about like, does hell make sense based off of what we know in scripture? I never really asked that question. So like, I feel like I started out with the basic stuff, like the questions that most people have.
Yeah.
Like if I have a really, really awesome Buddhist neighbor who is the most loving human being I've ever met, who does incredible things for the homeless people in my neighborhood, and has just always been like the good Samaritan type person, is that person going to burn in hell for eternity?
Absolutely. Forever.
Basic stuff. Yeah, right.
Buddhist barbecue.
Yeah. But yeah, so like I would ask the basic questions, and that's where I started, I think. But as time has gone over the last couple of years, like those things, sure, I've researched the heck out of them. We've had guests on, and we've had discussions about those topics, but like that stuff no longer interests me as much as other things now. And so I think I've evolved into now I'm curious. Now I'm interested in what I think is like the bigger picture. Like, where does mythology play in here? Like if all of the things in the Bible are just these elaborate vehicles, and the original audiences knew that these weren't historically factually true. What was the truth? What was the deeper meaning behind those vehicles that they were trying to convey?
What's the
to people?
truer truth?
Yes.
What's the truth within the truth?
Like what does God want his people to know through this ancient text?
What is ultimate reality?
Yeah. Like what is,
those are good questions.
like if we get 75 years on this earth, like what is, like the whole meaning of life question, but like what is the mission? What is our purpose? What are we supposed to do in the time that we have here? And like I'm in a place now where I feel like the answer is more simple than I originally thought that it was.
In what way?
I think that human beings tend to complicate things.
I think so too. It's what the ego does.
Yeah, ego, our intense desire to label and categorize things, to control things.
Yeah.
Um,
Mastery, as Pauline Boss would say it.
yeah, yeah. Like we have this absolute desire and need. It's like this driving need to master things, to control them, to have ownership over them.
Yeah.
And you can take that in a number of different ways. But I think, I don't know, I just get this nagging feeling like if Jesus was standing here with us, he'd be like, guys, you're overcomplicating this thing.
Yeah.
Like, just love each other and treat each other nicely. And like the rest of it is just comes with that, and like you keep looking at the Bible, and the Bible keeps pointing to this, like this attempt at a change of heart.
Yeah.
And like all the rest of that stuff tends to follow. Like once the change of heart happens, then the rest of it seems to get easier. But we tend to put the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
And we focus on the results of what happens after the change of heart occurs.
Yeah.
I guess that's what I'm thinking. What about you? Like where were you when we first started? And in what ways have the ideas that you had when we first started this evolved up through now?
I'll answer that in 1 second. One follow-up question for you. And then I'll answer.
Yes.
So like, as much as I hate labels,
Yeah.
like if you tried to use clumsy labels to describe kind of who you are and where you are spiritually, like what are some things that you would kind of say right now? It's just fun. I'm just baiting you.
You're
right now.
asking me this because on our group text with Clay, I told him I was going to hell the other day because I self describe as a what did I tell him? I was a Christ leaning Hindu Jewish mystic.
I thought you said Christ leaning Buddhist Jewish mystic.
Maybe
Maybe you said Hindu.
I'm really into Hinduism though. So I don't know.
So like, what does that mean? Like, if you're gonna just in just a second, like, just what do you mean when you kind of use a label that's like a mishmash like that? What are you trying to say?
I think
Are you still a Christian? Like, what does that mean?
yeah. I mean, it's kind of hard.
Love this.
I know. Ah, gosh, I'm having a hard time right now, currently in my life.
Good. Because we're not done here, John.
Nailing myself down like that. And of course that's partly in jest, but the more I study like other world religions, the more I see beauty in those religions, and the more I feel like I can't help but feel, and we'll get to this actually as a topic in the new year in 2018. We have a guest on to speak specifically to this topic, but I can't help but feel like there are puzzle pieces within all of these major religions that require us to have dialogue with one another in order to see the full beauty of the painting. And I can't remember who it was. Might have been Rohr, probably. Who talked about it's almost more gratifying reading the sacred text of another religion that's not yours, that's not your own, because you're reading it through almost like, I forget how he puts it, but like through clearer lenses than maybe you would if it was your own religion, because you're not clouded by the preconceived notions and the kind of the blinders put in place, through that religion. So you almost see it like, you almost see more of the beauty of it from the outside looking in versus from being in the inside.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Cool.
And we've had a lot of really cool guests on. We've been lucky in that way from some other religions, and you can't help but say something's going on here. And like, I don't know. For me personally, I'm just not ready to say that there's only one way. Personally.
Or even like, do we even know what we mean when we say that?
Well, and for me, it always comes back to how big is your God, right? Like,
Yeah.
how diverse is your God? Does your God delight in a large palette, a giant array of colors, a spectrum, or is your God pretty much just like, I like the color blue, and that's where I'm sticking with?
I like white.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
A lot of white.
A lot of people think that.
A lot of white.
So sad.
So much white.
Yeah, Norwegian Jesus.
All right.
Yeah.
I've grilled you long enough.
All right, your turn.
All right.
So where did you begin? What I want to know, like when we were having those conversations in your kitchen, drinking beers.
Man.
At that moment, I know you were fired up about some stuff. Like you had been reading. What were you reading first off? Like at the time, do you remember?
Oh, dude, I kind of remember. I remember the first time I read Pete Rollins'
Insurrection.
and it was unlike anything I'd ever read.
Yeah.
Truly, truly unlike anything I've ever read. To the point that it was so stimulating because it was so fresh and it was so interesting, and it was digging into areas that I had never, it was asking to open doors I'd never thought to open. It was taking it in directions that I'd never even thought to go. So when you talk about like tour guide, there's like the main path and like the main tours that like go along the same path, and here's this, and this was done here, and this what happened then. And then there's that guy that like wanders off into the bushes and he's just like, oh yeah, eat this berry. And like you gotta see like the fish we can catch in the stream over here, but be careful, it's dangerous and like,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. And the kind of nutty like tour guide.
That would be Pete.
That would totally be Dr. Pete Rollins. I was still like, I was reading John Mark Comer. I remember one of the biggest, and it's so funny because I have this in common with almost like Brian Zond. I was really, really into Abraham Joshua Heschel
Oh yeah,
at the time.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember. I was like,
do.
I had read The Sabbath a couple times. I was reading his book, The Prophets,
Yep.
God in Search of Man, and I was just like, holy Jewish mystic,
Yeah.
this guy is bringing me the truth,
Yep.
and he is a Jew. What do I do about that?
That kind of wrecks it, doesn't it?
Yeah. And so, but dude, it was so beautiful because reading Heschel and just starting to branch out a little bit and knowing, I remember it. This is so funny. I don't even know if I've told you this before, but I was having coffee with a buddy of mine who was also an evangelical pastor, as was I. And we were having coffee. And to my chagrin, both of us were like, we used to love the guys from the Gospel Coalition back in the day and, all that
Sure.
kind of stuff in my 20s. And we wanted to be men that respected our tradition.
Hmm.
And we wanted to do a good job. Like we wanted to take it seriously.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting with him and being like, I don't like this anymore. I know who I'm supposed to read and I know who I'm supposed to listen to. And I know they all got each other's backs. There's something wrong with this. And I just felt wrong about it out of nowhere. I wasn't listening to any other podcasts. I was listening to like Tim Keller's podcast every day.
Yeah.
I was listening to just stuff like that. Like I think I was listening to John Mark Comer a lot, Tim Keller, things like that. And something in me was like, you're moving on from here. It was in me. Like I didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
I could either be dishonest to what I knew I was it was bubbling up and I was needing to ask new questions. And I needed to either give voice to that or feel like a total hypocrite and know it
Yeah.
and have to live like that. And have to sit down with other people that had questions and tell them that their questions were the wrong questions and tell them that they just needed to like believe it this way and say it this way. And oh my gosh, I'm very persuasive.
Yeah.
And so I can talk people into things.
Sure.
And I did not want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to learn the company line and tell you why it's a good idea for you to believe it. I felt like a hypocrite.
So at the time, you were still in your position as an
Yep.
assistant pastor.
Yep. I was teaching pastor at
That's how I met you.
yep.
I was told, like, yeah, you've got a lot of questions. There's a guy who's also a nerd who happens to be one of the pastors who also likes to drink beer.
Yep.
You should go hang out with him.
Yep.
And I thought, sounds like my type of dude.
We had our first mandate.
We did.
Yes, we did.
And it was awesome.
Yes, it was.
So like I've been fortunate enough to see you through a lot of this journey. I mean, we've done this together. you know,
Yeah.
essentially.
Oh, dude.
This is a journal of our
Yes.
journey. So, but like in uniquely different ways because I work for a large bank, and you're a pastor, which comes with way different types of repercussions when you're starting to ask questions because you're supposed to be the answer guy.
Boy, you ain't kidding.
So how did that impact your ability to be a pastor in that role? And like when you're going through like a deconstruction, or I'd almost prefer to call it a journey. Like you start down the path, right?
Mhm.
And different people start on different points in the path, and that sort of thing. So like you start your journey, you're still employed, even though you're not getting paid,
Right. But like, I have a position.
Right. So
Yeah.
you have a position of
I'm
authority,
in a system. There's a construct. There's an expectation.
right?
I'm in that position.
So how does that impact that? How did it affect your ability to do that?
Boy, that's a delicate question, and I told you today was no holds barred. So
Right.
I'm gonna do my best to answer that without unnecessarily offending anyone,
Right.
and also just keeping it freaking real. So here's I've thought about this a lot. Here's the deal. So you and I and anybody listening to this, there's a temptation to start to feel like the enlightened ones, right?
Yeah.
Because we're the ones that like feel so free.
We figured it out.
We're so confident.
Yeah.
Like we shun certainty
Sure.
because we're past it,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're still in that certainty phase. Oh, I'm past that.
That's cute.
That's cute. That's sweet.
Right.
Good for you. I have the t-shirt. I bought it in 1999. It's been sitting in my drawer.
Right.
I'm way past that, right?
Right.
There is a total there's an asshole complex
Oh,
that
for
can
sure.
totally set in with people that think, oh, you got it. So here, my point in saying that is churches and any pastors that are listening to this, anybody that is responsible for a faith community, it is tricky, it is complicated, it is delicate to just open the whole thing up.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the cool thing that happened over the few years that this started happening with me while I was still a pastor, because I recently stopped functioning as one. I don't know if I'm still one or not. I don't know how that works.
You're still ordained. You're still a
I
pastor.
am, but I'm not.
You're a free agent.
Yeah, whatever. Weird. That's super weird. But here's what happens. There are people in life, and it's a good thing, that need to just be in a place where there isn't too much complexity. It's complexity and ambiguity, and the ability to embrace it and charge into it is a season you need to arrive at naturally.
Yes.
It's not for everyone. It's not privileged. It's not superior. And anybody that just needs to be a part of a community, which requires them to adopt a certain kind of language, it requires them to somewhat go along with certain belief assumptions to participate in certain communities. And I'm not even just talking about church. That pretty much applies to any committed community of any kind of like belief or whatever. It's just necessary for the most part. That's a good thing. To answer your question about me,
Mm-hmm.
I knew I was starting to be called away from that. And I was given a lot of latitude, and I was given a lot of grace because people trusted me that I loved people and that I was operating from a place of genuineness and grace and honest curiosity and faith in what I call the Spirit, which leads, and sometimes it's into the wilderness.
Yeah.
And that is a part of our tradition. And you don't know when that call is just going to come, man. Like, it's just one day you're just sitting in a boardroom meeting learning about implicit bias, and the next day you're just like, oh my gosh, like you're totally deconstructing and kind of loving every minute of it.
Yeah.
You never saw it coming. So for me, it was really, really, here's the thing I liked about it. I couldn't phone it in anymore.
Mm.
The packaged answers, the memorized answers, the things I knew I was supposed to say, none of that worked for me anymore. And I couldn't put it on autopilot.
Mm.
I had to be present, which interestingly enough, I felt like the Spirit or the divine or, my inner voice or whatever you want to call it, calling me to start to practice intentional living. Live with intention.
Yeah.
Be deliberate with your life. Be aware, be present, be here. Like, be involved in your life. The thing I love about deconstruction is you can't phone it in.
Yeah.
You can't memorize the catechism. You can't memorize the systematic theology. You can't. It's wild. It is unpredictable. And here's the beautiful thing. I think, and I don't know if would ever even want to make these available for people. We could talk about that. And if anybody ever wants them, they can look. But like if you listen to the sermons that I preached pre and post quote unquote deconstruction, I've always been a good communicator. I became a much more excellent quote unquote preacher because I was right there in it with you and you and you and anybody else. Like I felt afraid in a good way. Like
Yeah.
I felt respect for the mystery of being human, of how much I don't understand God
Mm.
or the Bible or this whole intricate labyrinth of spirituality in the world. But how much I love it.
I still think your last sermon, the last sermon you did, not knowing it was going to be your last sermon, but I still hold that it's one of the best sermons I've ever heard. And
Thanks,
obviously,
man.
I'm biased because I love hearing you, riff on stuff and talk about stuff that you're interested in or whatever. So obviously, like I enjoy it, but I still think growing up, son of a pastor, hearing tons of different sermons, I thought I could tell that all the things that you were reading and the conversations that you were having and just the authenticity of it, like I could tell in the energy behind it
Mm,
that you were passionate, you were firing on a level that you hadn't
mm.
before, and it was coming out in a way that benefited every single person that got a chance to hear it. So
Thanks, man.
yeah, you're
Thanks.
welcome. Very interesting, man.
Love the struggle.
Yeah, love the struggle.
Love the struggle.
And boy, has that come up again and again throughout the podcast.
It's a big thing, man. You know, life is hard.
Mm.
Life is a struggle. And the first thing we all try to do is to find a solution to alleviate the sensation of struggle. Screw that.
Yeah.
No, the struggle is life.
So almost like we planned this, but great transition into my next question.
Come on.
So before we get into talking about what 2018 is going to look like,
Yeah.
and that sort of thing, because we have some really cool stuff planned.
Yeah.
But as far as 2017 goes,
Yeah.
before we get into the lightning round fun questions,
Good year. 2017 was you crushed it, CEO.
oh, thanks, man.
Dude, you did it. You did hard work.
But no, we both came up with some awesome guests, I think, and we're both trying to think up some even better ones. I mean, after the first year, I remember we sat down. We're like, how are we going to top that? Like, we kind of got everybody on our Christmas wish list the first season
really quickly.
So so before we get into that, because I have I typed up the list of all the musical guests that we had, all the guests we had. Just so we could sit down and actually take a minute to look at it because we hadn't done that. But before we do that, I feel like now would be a good time to, base off of where we're at in our personal journeys, what advice do you have for people listening? Because we get predominantly the most frequent emails that we get are emails saying like, "Look, I am going through a deconstruction of sorts."
Yep.
At various stages. We have people who are like, I think I just started, and people who are like, yeah, I think I've been doing this for years. But they always have the same kind of feedback, which is typically I'm kind of terrified.
Sure.
I feel like I'm alone.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure where to go next with this.
Mm.
So 2 years now
Mm-hmm.
into this, what advice would you have for somebody?
You know what, man? It really does, and I'm glad you kind of I don't know if you did that on purpose or not, but I think the biggest realization that I have had in all of these things is it is hard. It is hard. You are now confused. Congratulations.
Yeah.
You know? You now know that you don't know, and you can't You can't feel the back of the closet in the darkness. You just, oh God, what did I get myself into? Where is this going? My words of quote unquote wisdom for you is it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And you need to know that. You're here. You're breathing. You are a miracle if you're listening to this. The fact that you are listening through the internet to a couple of guys from the Midwest talk about these things, and you can process it. You have consciousness, you have breath, you have life. You are here. You are a miracle. This life that you've been given is tension. It is conflict. It is struggle. And that is not a judgment on you. It doesn't mean you're doing something wrong, as all the self-help books would try to kind of weirdly convince you of. It is beautiful that you get to struggle. And you're not alone. Even if you feel alone, you might need to feel alone for a little while. But the quickest way out of that is to start being really honest about where you're at with as many people as possible. Get on the internet. It's a beautiful gift that God's given us. Connect with people in your area. Connect with people online. You are not alone. And this struggle that you now find yourself in, learn to love it. It is not a judgment on you. You should not feel guilty. You should not feel ashamed. You need to be honest about it. And you can't get through it quicker than you're supposed to. So enjoy and embrace every painful, joyful, agonizing, beautiful step.
Dude, I love it. I love it. I was actually reflecting back on when I first had that conversation with my wife in the kitchen. For those of you that have been with us for a while, I think we talked early on about like, okay, so how did that go?
Yeah. When you told her that, like, I don't know what I believe anymore.
Yeah, and she was just like, I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah.
We're unequally yoked now.
Hang on.
She prayed for me for 2 months. Remember?
Pulling out some Corinthians on you.
Oof. It was rough, which is funny because, as we kind of talked about before, like people enter, they enter into their deconstruction, they enter into their journeys at different moments in life, and sometimes never at all. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. Like I think Rohr once said, you can't force somebody to take a journey that they're not ready for. And I sincerely believe that to be the case. And so, for my wife personally, like that wasn't where she was at that point.
Right.
And I knew that. And so I made a conscious effort to say, look, this is where I'm at. And but I also felt like I needed to be honest with her at the same time and say,
right.
And so we've kept an open dialogue the entire time. And so I know a lot of you out there who are listening, who have written us, are in a very different place than your loved ones, than your spouse or your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your family members, your friends, your community, the church community that you grew up with. And like you have to know that's okay, and you can't expect them to be where you are.
Right.
And yeah, it's gonna suck. Like there's gonna be potentially some alienation. And hopefully you're surrounded by loving people who, even though they don't get it, that they still support you and love you, regardless.
Yeah.
Because I'll be honest, my wife, like, even though she was terrified and prayed for me for 2 months, it's funny because she saw me come alive in a way that she'd never seen before. And she came along kind of with me. She was kind of on the side of the path. She was like, I'm not jumping in on this road yet, but like, I'm just going to keep an eye on you, make sure it's okay. And so we would continue to have conversations like, hey, this is what I read today. This is what I learned today. This is what I talked about today. And keeping her informed, like, made her feel a little bit more at ease, right? And now she's in a very different place. Like she's jumped on the path full force, but she's at a way different point than I am.
So funny how that happens.
Yeah, and so I can identify with that. I'm like, yeah, I've been there. And so I know that, like, I can't force her to progress more quickly than she has the ability to do, and so I just have to.
You wouldn't want to.
No, I want her to enjoy it as well because it is enjoyable after you get over the crapping your pants part and freaking out. There is beauty and freedom and joy in the ambiguity and the freedom that brings with it. And so I would just encourage people to like hang in there.
Yeah.
And there are more of you out there than you know, and you will be okay. I promise you that you will be okay.
You will.
But also, my last point before we move on to the lightning round is resist the urge to build your house on the portion of the path that you're currently standing on.
Don't do that. Try not to do that. You
Don't
might
do
need,
that.
you might need a pit stop. You might need an oasis.
Yeah, you can stop for a water break. That's totally cool. But don't build your house there.
But there's so much more road ahead.
It's very easy and tempting in the very, very first part, like when you first start taking that road trip at that first pit stop, to be like, I have arrived. I'm here.
Yep.
Trust me, you're not. And if you think that you are, and if you stop and you build your house there, you're going to miss so much more. And this thing is a continuous journey. Like this thing is going to could potentially last a lifetime, and it probably should.
We're talking about ultimate reality here. We're
Mhm.
talking about questions that require an endless journey because the answer is endless.
Yeah.
And, just like a tapestry, like when they talk about tapestries and they're like beautiful, and it's like, oh, you don't know how many mistakes are in there that just get woven in
Yeah.
and they become part of the tapestry in a beautiful way. Or like chaos theory, or, all these kinds of things. Like the journey is endless
Yeah.
and it is infinite, and that should completely melt your brain.
Mm-hmm.
And that is actually what I start to think maybe the Bible means when it says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. You should know that you can't wrap your brain around this.
Right.
There's a respect and an awe that comes from just the fact that you're here,
Yeah.
that you're alive.
Just watch the first episode of Cosmos.
The Carl Sagan one or the new one with Neil deGrasse Tyson?
Either one, but I feel like the Neil deGrasse Tyson one, the first episode alone.
So good.
Watch the whole series, but the first episode alone will be enough to make you feel like a grain of sand on the
Yeah.
world's biggest beach.
In a good way.
It's beautiful.
In a good way. And so one of the things that I would say, no matter where you're at, here's the bottom line for me. You exist. That is evidence enough of what I believe is called grace. You didn't used to exist.
Yeah.
You didn't used to be a thing. And now you are, and you're here thinking about it. That is grace.
Yeah.
And grace, in my opinion, because you don't deserve to be here, I don't deserve to be here. You can't deserve to come into existence from where? From nowhere, from the oblivion, from the mystery, whatever. And so if that's grace, and grace is that you're accepted, just the fact that you're here is the greatest evidence that you are accepted.
Yes.
In my opinion, if I can break it down simply, you're here equals you are accepted. So, to borrow Tillich, accept that you're accepted where you're at. You're not journeying towards acceptance. You were born into it.
Boom. And now,
The lightning round.
the lightning round. All right.
I
so,
love this so much. Merry Christmas, John.
see, this is the fun part. We got to keep it. We got to switch it up a little bit.
All right,
So,
all right. Let's go.
All right. So you gave me a book that you were reading when you first started.
Yes.
Give me a few books you're reading now.
Oh man, I'm reading Religion for Atheists by Alain de Botton.
Nice.
I'm reading Courage to Be by Paul Tillich.
Nice.
I am reading the very last chapter of The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Then I'm going to start Crime and Punishment.
Whoa.
Dude, I'm just super into the guy right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Now I got to think about. So
Mainly, most of my time is being spent on Brothers Karamazov and Tillich right now, but I am starting to read Alain de Botton.
I love
also.
you do know you realize in the entirety of our friendship that is the first book that I've ever heard that you've read that is not like brain food.
Brothers Karamazov?
Yeah.
It's brain food.
Well, yeah, but not like a psych novel or
Oh,
a psych,
no.
not psych novel, but like a psych textbook.
And I should, man. I really
Yeah.
should. I do enjoy a good novel, but like there's just so much to learn out there, and I
know.
love learning, and
I
I
know.
love the exercise on the brain. So those are the few things that I am reading right now.
Sweet. I'm also reading Tillich. I'm reading Dynamics of Faith. I'm also reading more Joseph Campbell. I've gotten into some of his work again. First time since college, so I've dipped into a little bit of that. Also, he led me to Otto Rank. Yeah, so that's kind of one of his predecessors when it came to really like breaking down mythology and the different stories that have kind of been recycled through cultures across the planet
Sure.
over time, which is
Very
fascinating.
Very cool. Very cool.
Really like eye opening. And then what else have I been reading? For fun, I started Brave New World by Aldous Huxley.
That's good. There you go.
Yeah, just for some, like make me feel better about the fact that I'm pretty sure that we're entering the Big Brother time now. So
I think we've probably already been there for
Yeah.
a while.
Yep. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm reading right now. So
Reading some good stuff, man.
yeah.
Reading some good stuff.
So over the course of 2 years, we have now interviewed, I can't remember how many guests, but a lot.
60 some.
Yeah, I think technically
66.
we put up 67
67.
tonight. However, we've actually interviewed more than 67 guests. True.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Really?
Well, Brendan wasn't a numbered episode.
Oh.
And so maybe 68.
We had a couple like mishaps like that didn't get released because
Yeah.
of technical difficulties, like Dr. Ray Bryant.
Oh, yeah. So right around 70. We'll say 70 guests. Spanning psychology, the different areas of science. We've had an astrophysicist on. We've had a climate scientist. We've had musicians. We've had comedians. We've had obviously a gamut, span the gamut of
Anthropologists,
theology.
psychologists.
Yeah. So, out of those guests, who were maybe a couple of the ones who you really like? We really just knocked off of your wish list.
Oh, the wish list?
Yeah, wish list first, and then we'll go into who were some of the ones that really just kind of caught you off guard and surprised you in a good way.
Oh, man. So I think an important episode for me was breaking the echo chamber with Tim Keller.
Yeah.
It was just an important episode because it was like one thing that all of us, and I do mean this, all of us need to be careful of is hating where you came from.
Right.
We do it. We polarize ourselves. And then what you end up doing, man, is you end up carrying around hate and disdain for yourself, for a former version of yourself, because as a very wise counselor once told me, right now, you are carrying around every previous version of yourself with you right now. You are the 6-year-old John. You are the 10-year-old John. You're the 12, 18. You all the way up to, 38, something like that?
Yeah.
All of those people are with you.
Yeah.
Love them. Have compassion for them. That goes for the theological, philosophical versions of yourself as well. And it was important for me to have a guy like Tim Keller on because I still respect him.
You can still learn from him, too.
And I learn a ton from him.
Absolutely.
And by the way, he just had a great article that just came out about is the word evangelical dead in the light of like Donald Trump and Roy Moore in the New Yorker.
Whoa.
That just came out like yesterday. And it's a good article. Like for him, for where he's coming from, he's fair, he's graceful, he's not a jerk, and he's really, really smart.
Yeah.
And so getting to talk to him about doubt and skepticism, big deal. Derek Webb, big deal. Big musical crush. Going through a huge deconstruction of his own right now. Those were really big deals. I would say the ones that left indelible impressions on me that like they haunt you.
Yeah.
They stay with you.
Mm-hmm.
Jack Caputo,
Oh, for sure.
Walt Brueggemann.
Yep.
I mean, every one of the ones we've done with Pete Rollins and Alexander Shia.
Yep.
Getting to do NC Wright in person.
Oh boy.
Getting to do Rob Bell in person. Our episode with Richard Rohr. I mean, I would say the Pauline Boss episode was probably one of the most important we've ever done.
Agreed.
So many, man. Art Green.
Oh gosh.
I know I took yours. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. We can overlap. That's fine.
All right, lightning round. You go.
Ooh.
Episodes that just completely blew you away.
Yeah. Art Green definitely. Especially like I feel like we've just scratched the surface with him. So I'd love to have him back.
Gotta have him back on. Wolpe too.
Dude, Wolpe, the like Sumbul and Samya from our religious pluralism series just opened my eyes.
Yes.
Sumbul,
oh my god,
dude, like just one of the sweetest, kindest people. Both of them, just could not have been kinder, and just for two dummies who just had no idea about either of their respective religions. Just so kind,
so good.
Gosh, who else? Father James Martin was a big one for me.
Oh man, huge.
Diana Butler Bass was one on my wish list. So like she did not disappoint.
Not at all.
Big fan of hers. Pauline Boss, of course.
Jeez.
Gosh, going back to the prior year, Caputo was just that one. Like, yeah, that one left me spinning after we got done talking to him. Roar, of course, was like big time number one on the dream list. Just people like that who you talk to and they don't even come with notes. They just sit down because they're operating on a whole other level.
It's all internalized. They've got it all in there.
You know, another one who completely threw me off. On the list of like ones who just blew me away, who I wasn't necessarily expecting. At least in that big a way was like Tad DeLay.
Oh,
another big one.
Dude, and he's become obviously a friend.
Yeah.
And man, the new episode that we're gonna have with him.
Whoo! Spoiler alert.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
That'll probably be episode number 1 coming out in 2018.
Has to be. Let's just knock their socks off.
Yeah.
Let's just do that.
Right out of the gate.
Oh my gosh.
And of course, like Pete Rollins and Alexander Shai, who like, I mean, to say that we owe them a debt of gratitude for what they've done for our podcast and just the conversations, they always bring like fresh ideas, and they just get and love and understand what it is that we're trying to accomplish here, and are massive cogs. They've been on multiple times each. Yeah, I mean, I can't say enough about them. So next question. Obviously, we got into the habit. Those who have followed us long enough know that we didn't always use original music. We had theme music that we had made for us at the very, very beginning. We'll have to bring that back for a special episode at some point. Still have it. But we use different bands and artists every week. And so who out of the musicians that we use, we'll stick to this year because I can't even remember.
Oh my gosh, dude, you have done just such. I gotta brag on you again. I mean, with everything that this podcast accomplishes week after week, John does so much of it. And finding, getting permission, because like, for all of you aspiring podcasters out there, don't just start using music. Make sure you get permission in writing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're asking for pain later.
Yeah.
John gets permission. He curates great songs. So to answer your question, I think one of the ones that I really enjoyed having on because it was meaningful for my relationship with you was Civil Twilight.
Oh, yeah.
Because that was the first show that we ever saw live.
That's right.
Yep. And it was so good. And we drank a bunch of beer and we had a really good time.
Yeah.
St. Paul and the Broken Bones.
Oh, my gosh.
Good gravy, Marie. Oh, my gosh, man. Manchester Orchestra, Noah Gunderson, Civilian, obviously. I thought Anchor and Braille was just off the chain. John Bryant. I don't even know where you found that dude, but he made me cry.
He's got new music coming out soon too, and I can't wait. That guy's
Tyson-
just a sweet, sweet guy too.
Tyson Motzenbacher. I mean, dude, you've knocked it out of the park.
Oh,
And that's
thanks, man.
just to name a few. I mean, you've expanded my palette of music, and I'm
my own.
your podcast partner. So how cool is that?
That's one of the small joys I have. Like is finding bands, and like I don't share them with Adam beforehand, so I edit the music in. And there are certain ones where I know I've kind of figured out kind of Adam's like preference, and so there's certain ones where I'm like, hey,
Sad.
you're gonna like this, and I get real excited to share new stuff with you. But
I like sad music.
oh my gosh, yeah, I'm kind of the same way, man. Like I think obviously Manchester Orchestra, I think they put out one of the greatest records
Of 2017.
period
Heck yeah.
with their new album this year.
Black Mile of the Sun.
Surface?
Black Mile of the Surface.
Yeah, I think
Oh
it's
gosh, it's so good.
incredible from start to finish.
Start to finish. It's a masterpiece.
Obviously St. Paul and the Broken Bones was a huge one.
Yep.
Civil Twilight, same reason.
So good.
The band Owl is another big find for me. John Bryant, like clearly like one of my new favorite artists.
So good.
Tyson Motzenbacher, fulfilling one of my childhood or my youthful dreams, Project 86, of course.
Oh yeah, of course.
And then one of my favorite moments in the history of our music, Greta Isaac.
Oh yes.
Holy crap.
Holy yes. I'm so glad you said that.
Dude, not only have you seen her art on Instagram?
Yes.
She's incredible.
Incredible.
So Greta, I know you're listening out there. It was an honor to be able to she's a listener, and her producer reached out to us and said, hey, like, so if you're aspiring musicians, like feel free to send us your music.
Please. We would love to feature your music.
We've found some really incredible artists that way. But Greta's producer reached out and said, hey, she's a big fan of the show, and like she's got some new music coming out, and like you don't always get awesome music. So we listened to it, and Adam and I were both we were sitting around drinking wine at your house, and we put it on your stereo,
I remember.
and we were like, oh, whoa.
Holy cow.
Whoa! So we couldn't wait to use it, and she's killing it over in England right now.
Yeah,
and,
she is.
I keep telling her, I'm like, you need to plan a North American tour.
Mm-hmm.
So make it happen, Greta.
Come on, Greta.
But yeah. So okay. So like we're running short on time here, but last couple questions in the lightning round. New year. We're approaching the new year. So by the time this comes out, we are almost in New Year's. We are almost finished with 2017. Good riddance. It was a long year. We had fun, but
It's so much fun.
there's some things in 2017 I'd like to forget.
Yep. Yep. We got a couple shit burgers.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. So 2018, what does that look like for the Deconstructionist podcast? What are we working on? Obviously, we don't want to give out too many of the guests, although we've started recording some episodes already.
Dude, you know what? The guests are just going to continue to be diverse and spectacular. I really, really want to do an episode on sexuality,
Yes.
not as an answer because there isn't one,
Right.
but as another way of engaging in that conversation that could be helpful.
Yes.
So I really want to try to tackle that.
Yeah. What other topics are we kicking around?
Oh man, I think that's the one that's kind of burning, for me right now. I want to definitely tackle like what does it mean when we talk about the idea of church?
Yeah.
Like what is that? And like what are we talking about there? I want to get like Tim Mackey from the Bible Project back on. I want to get some like nerdery, like into like some stuff that's like people don't even know.
So like Scripture Series Part 2?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Like
Yeah.
Scripture Series Part 2, get some nerd stuff going on, some really good juice for some people that they don't even know. But you know what? 2018 me, man, is the incarnation. It's I want flesh and blood. I want to hug people.
Yeah.
I want to meet listeners. I want to meet our fellow deconstruction posse, gang, fellow people out there.
So what does that mean, Adam?
Hug them, smell them, imbibe with them.
What does that mean, Adam?
It's going to mean some kinds of live events that honestly we've been so busy lately we've not had time to ideate like we wanted to. But 2018, it's going to freaking happen.
Yep. So we're looking at doing some live events. So I know there are people out there who we've kind of put this out into the universe before, and people are like, yeah, like we'd be down for something like that. So what are ways that you guys can help? What are ways that people can help, Adam? Like what are ways that they can help make that happen in their neighborhood?
When we announce some places that we already have, like what would be like, a target rich environment, where we have plenty of people that would come out and support, help us gather not a crowd, help us gather a community of people that are going to meet to encourage each other.
Right.
Because that's what it really comes down to. And we need help with that. We need help spreading the word. We need help, hyping it up and making it something that people want to come out to. Not something that John and I are doing to make a dime. We could care less.
No.
We just want to get out and meet you guys.
Yeah. So like at this point, like Adam said, we're starting to look. We're in the very, very, very initial stages of looking at cities that we feel like hopefully that we can support a live event. So, so the best thing that you guys can do if you guys want us to come to a place near you is continue to spread by word of mouth. Like tell as many people in your community as you can about our show, because we can see that. We can see where you guys are listening in the highest concentration. So continue to like help get the word out, and that's what's going to help draw us near to where you live.
Yes.
And then like Adam said, like once we schedule an event, just continue to get the word out and like bring as many of your friends as you can. And we will do our best to make sure that is a fun night, a night that's worthwhile, and one that's memorable, hopefully for everybody. So,
dude, you know what? Honestly, like we're so American and consumeristic that everything always needs to be epic and awesome. Do you know what's going to be awesome? And if you're listening and you really buy into what you're doing, what I'm about to say is going to resonate with you. What is going to be awesome is seeing other people, talking with other people, being with other people that want to have these types of conversations that aren't going to look like you. They're not going to be like you. And being around them, let me tell you something. Almost any amount of money is going to be worth the electricity that you're going to feel being in a group, in a room, on a night with a whole bunch of people that want to have these conversations and think this whole thing actually matters. Not our podcast. I could give a crap. Like what this all is actually tapping into that's way beyond it. Does that make sense?
totally.
That's what these nights are going to be about. It has nothing to do with like putting out some huge production. No, literally not interested. We'll probably talk a little bit. Maybe we'll have a little bit of music. But the point is to get a glass in your hand and see other people that are like you and not like you.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
I mean, for those of you who keep emailing us and asking us, like, "Hey, I live in Austin, Texas," or,
Atlanta, Georgia.
wherever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like, where can I connect with other people in my community? That's what these events will be about. We
Yes.
don't know.
Yeah.
But if we can leave town knowing that we brought together a bunch of different people from that area who now can connect with one another and continue after we leave, that is the goal.
Yep.
So stay tuned. We're still working on it.
2018 is going to be beautiful, man.
Yeah, Patreon.
Oh, man. Thank you guys.
Thank you. Obviously, like we just started this year, partway through 2017. We at this point are working on some new packages, some new fun things. Obviously, a lot of you guys like the book club. We'll continue to do that, but we want to bring some new, fresh packages to our Patreon campaign. So if you can, join at any level. Thank you in advance. If you can't, like honestly, that's fine. Like, we're not in this to be rich or like make a ton of money.
Don't care.
Do not care at all. The only thing that we care about
We
is
just want
that,
to connect with you guys.
that you guys can connect and that you guys get something out of this. So if you can, great. If you can't, that's fine. But we'll continue. Just know we'll continue to work hard to bring different packages to the campaign. And other than that, our blog is kind of a new thing this year too that we started. So
Yep.
we'll continue to write and we'll continue to try to bring on guest bloggers too. So
Yep.
check it out under our journal on www.thedeconstructionist.com. And that's definitely something that we plan on putting a lot of time and effort into in 2018 and continuing to bring you more content that way. So
I'm really happy right now.
yeah, we're both sleepy too. So
Sleepy and happy. I'm really happy. Come a long way. And so many of you are with us, even if it's just sporadically, just kind of checking in.
yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, that's good. It's all right. We love you guys.
Yeah, we appreciate each and every one of you. And
Merry Christmas. and
Merry Christmas.
Happy New Year.
yeah, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa.
Festivus. Let's not forget Festivus.
Festivus.
I saw you got the poll outside. Next is the airing of grievances.
Yeah.
I got a lot of problems with you people.
Hey, look, like whatever you're celebrating, because we know that not all of our listeners happen to identify with Christianity. That's fine. We're just happy that you're here. We're happy that you're engaging in this and that you're open to listening to the ideas that we bring on board. So thank you guys so much. Happy, merry, whatever. Happy New Year.
How about just lots of love to all of you guys and a lot of respect for where you guys are all at.
Yes. We can't wait to hug you guys, each and every one of you, in 2018.
Free hugs.
Free hugs for everybody.
Free hugs. For now, we are your hosts. I am Adam Narlock.
And I'm John Williamson.
Grace and peace and Happy New Year, everybody. Keep deconstructing.
Peace.